Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? How are you? How was your weekend? How was your Monday? Sun shining. All is right with the world. Show number 995. Before the show starts, I generally get a message from Dan Cullen who says, there you are. He says something like that virtually every day. 5-minute countdown and waiting. He's right. It is 5-minute countdown. However, this week it is also, as Andy Darvell has just said, T minus 5 shows to 1,000. Yeah. This time next week, we will be broadcasting our 1,000th show. And I sincerely hope you're around for it because my office is rammed with stuff that I want to give away. And there's more arriving. I've got a package arriving from Caterpillar in about 2 hours' time. So loads and loads of stuff to give away. Please, 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 please be here because I want to give stuff away. Gary Muirhead, why are you going to Essex? I am going to Essex. I'm going to meet up with Steve Kerslake of Construction Sport to be on his podcast. Doing that later today. So, yeah, long old drive down to Malden, the home of the sea salt. Apparently, who knew? Who else do we have here? We've already said good morning to Andy Darvell and to Dan Cullen. Others here. Where are we? Get down a bit, down a bit, down a bit. Gary Muirhead is here. Good morning, Gary. Thank you for the question of the day today, which I will get to in just a moment. Now, let's see what the Walrus of Demo has in store today. Yep, well, plenty. Stefan Edwards is here as well, all the way probably from the Netherlands. Morning, Stefan. Jim Turner is here as well. Morning, Jim. Something else here. Mark Whiting is here as well. Good morning, Mark. Let me press your button while it's stood in front of me. It is that one there. I want to say good morning to Garvin over on Instagram as well. Loads and loads of people over on Instagram, but Garvin always stands out because he's forever present. And Dan is just saying, more equipment landed this morning on site. Good news. Do you get to have a play? That's the important thing. Now, I do have loads and loads of stuff to get through this morning, but I do want to stop very quickly and say good morning to Chris, who says, good morning, lads. Don't you love it when a plan comes together? I can't remember the last time a plan of mine did come together. So shall we crack on? I think we probably should, because as I say, I need to answer the door to the Caterpillar delivery, but I also need to get myself down to Essex as well. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and just incidentally, I am going to roll the intro in just a moment. You're only going to see this 5 more times. It's going away. It is. I've seen the replacement. It's better. It'll take some getting used to, but it is better. So, yes, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, blah, 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 and get the show on the road. Very quickly, going back to Dan Cullen, he's hoping to get a play on a Komatsu 61 PSI dozer later today, later in the week. Interestingly, and Dan may well have this off his bug, because later in the show, we're going to be talking about Komatsu dozers. Gary says it's fantastic to see all the big manufacturers dug deep and donated wonderful gifts as a prize giveaway. Just show they have plenty of faith in this amazing platform. It is, I have to say, it is little things like that. They are very, very reassuring. I probably should and probably could have reached out to more, but I didn't, purely because the office is full. I mean, to give you an idea. How do I do it? Okay. You see that? That's full of Liebherr goodies, that is. You see that? Guess what that's full of? Yeah, you kind of... And that doesn't include all the other stuff. We've got a huge amount there from JCB as well. We've got more coming from Caterpillar, as I said. hoping to have some more delivered from Komatsu as well. They are pushed for time, but they have still got a week, and I've got my fingers crossed. One of the things that I will tell you is, well, I will get on with the show in just a moment. The show could start at any moment. Not only are we changing, the format, the layout, there'll be a new intro, there'll be new bits and pieces. There'll be a new introduction to things like the morning monologue. If you go over to YouTube before the show starts, there'll be a new AI-driven intro to that, which is all very, very sexy as well. In addition to that, we're going to be doing a new show. I won't be able to get rid of all of the stuff that I've got here. So we're going to go back to doing what we used to do, and have regular, pretty much daily competitions to give stuff away. I've got so much. I mean, I've got some big stuff. I've got some little stuff. I've got some wintry hats. I've got some summery hats. I've got power banks for your mobile phone. I've got an on-desk charger for your mobile phone. I've got loads and loads. I sound a bit like Deal Boy down the market right now, I realise, but we've got loads and loads and loads of stuff to give away. So I'm going to go back to a bit of old school, really. We're going to go back to having a daily competition, and it's going to be called A Minute to Win It. Okay. So where we used to have the interlude for our mystery machine, I'm going to ask you a question. You've got 1 minute, 60 seconds in which to blast your answers into the chat, and then we'll press the randomizer, and we'll find out who has won the gift for the day. That's all to come. Loads and loads of stuff. I'll come back to the question of the day in just a moment, but I do want to say a very quick good morning to Mick Norton. Morning, Mick. Good of you to join us. Dan Cullen. Oh, I want that Liebherr bag. Well, play your cards right, Dan. You may well end up with it. Excuse me. It is Monday, the 8th of September. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and in today's show. Liebherr have produced a mini epic film that marries ancient Egypt with electric cranes. I realise they sound like odd bedfellows, but it works. Because it's Liebherr, it works. Paving and compaction get smart with Volvo, rather. We're marking our show number 995 with a cat 995. We don't just throw this stuff together, And going back to Dan, who's going to hopefully get a play on a dozer. Dozer undercarriage inspection, Komatsu-style. We'll be doing that. And in my morning monologue today, for those of you that remember mid-year, back in the day, back in 1986, actually, the title of today's morning monologue is If I Was a Better Man, and all of that kind of stuff. When's Fred going to join you on the show? You should do a twosome for the 1000th show. Hey, listen, I'll ask him. I already know that the second world will be off, and chances are he'll be on the golf course. But I'll ask the question nonetheless. So before we move on, I've already had quite a few answers to our question of the day, but I am going to remind you of it very quickly. It looks like this. Yeah, sorry, slurping tea. Question of the day comes from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead, and his question is this: what is most important to you right now? Now, obvious answer, and I know a few people have gone for this, and I don't blame you at all. Obvious answer: family and friends. Can't be without them. Wouldn't want to be. But the older I get, the more I think about my health. I have had a few scares along the way. I'm firing on all cylinders at the moment, but I do. This came up in conversation. I've told you that myself and the Mrs. Demolition News are planning to do a cruise to Japan. Probably not next year, but the year after. And it's really made me mindful of my health. Like, I want to do it while I'm still very, very mobile. I take tablets for blood pressure and stuff like that, but I don't want to be doing a trip of that nature, once in a lifetime on half power. I want to be mobile. I want to be healthy. I want to really enjoy it. So yeah, the thing that important to me right now is my health. You wouldn't know it from my lifestyle and my eating habits and my diet, but that's there's still things I wanna do, still things I want to accomplish, and I really don't want ill health getting in the way. Let's go over to the chat, see what you're all saying. Jim Turner, very much of the same mind. The health of my family and me, yeah. Dan Cullen says, like the green strap on your watch. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, Dan, but I've actually got a green. There you are. It goes away, but there is a green face on my watch as well. One of the joys of having an Apple Watch is that you can change the way it looks. There you are. Mostly diggers. Garvin says getting the heating working again in my house because winter's coming. Yeah, it's quite funny actually. My daughter's boyfriend is a heating engineer, and for the last couple of months he's played quite a bit of golf. Hasn't been exactly flat out with work. It's just started. People are just flicking on their heating in the evening and going, "Oh dear, boiler's not working." So he's gone from absolute famine to an incoming feast, which is probably just as well. Chris Ford, question of the day. He'd like what's on his mind? What's important to him right now? To sell 20,000 tons of crushed concrete, so I keep my head above water. P.S. I'm not giving it away. Quite right too. There is value in that. Dan Cullen says, "All power banks. I need a few of them. I've definitely got a JCB one or two here, and possibly some others as well." Gary Muirhead says, "My family, especially right now, having to work away from home and only be able to see them at weekends." As a family man, Gary, you know, and I don't want you to get all sentimental and emotional here, but you are a family man, you know, a dedicated family man. How do you find that? How do you find that? Because when I did most of my travel when I was young and irresponsible, and yes, I had children and new wife and stuff like that. But I was probably a bit selfish at the time and didn't really worry about it too much. Really struggle with it now. You know, I've got a trip coming up now. Admittedly, I'm going with Fred. We're going to Kentucky in October for a whole week, but I will miss the missus. I will absolutely miss the missus. So let me know. Let's have a look. Andy Darville saying join the queue, Dan. Mick Norton says the ongoing care of my wife. Yeah, how is she doing, Mick? I know you've had some medical ups and downs there. How is she doing right now? Hope she's on the mend. Andy Darvell says questions are making sure my family are all okay and fed and can sleep safely at night. Good point. Andy Thornton says after the obvious, yoga, the new big business venture which is progressing well and improving my relationships. I'd like to have some relationships. I don't mean that in a sexual way. Yeah, I won't do that now, but I've said it to you before. You know, I have got lots of online friends, many of whom I'm talking to right this minute. Offline, not so much, not so much. Gary says, just been told my Volvo 500 is stuck in Rotterdam right now, so I'm going to have to make do with a Cat 352 just now. It's not a bad replacement. The 352 is pretty smart. Steel wrist Apple Watch strap. Now listen, steel wrist, Carl and co. If you are watching, if there is such a thing as a steel wrist watch strap, roughly that color, please send it to me. I'd wear it with pride. Why don't people do that? Why don't and phone cases? I know a few people do phone cases, but I'd happily clad my iPhone in I don't know, a cat case or a Liebherr case or a JCB case. People, come on, think outside the box. Question of the day. Jim Turner says, but after health, the main thing is finishing the new house off, moving it into it. Excuse me, smartening the current house up and either selling it or renting it out. Yeah, good luck to you, my friend. I've been at it that long; it's just second nature, unfortunately. Yeah, it's I went through the same. We're talking about being away from family. For a long time, it was second nature. I think it's because I've broken the habit. I went quite a while, not just because of COVID, right? I went quite a while without traveling quite so much. Got very, very selective about the travel that I was doing and what have you. And yeah, now it does feel like a wrench. I'm all right for a day or two, you know, not too bothered about that. But when you're doing a Balmer, you know, for 8 9 days, when you're doing Kentucky for 7 days or whatever, does sting a bit. That's nice. 352. I'm on the 210 Komatsu. That's not a bad place to be either. A breakfast show watch strap. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I could get them. Well, I don't think I would have the volume to make them reasonably priced. That's my problem. But hey, you never know. Bearing in mind, the 1000th show coming up, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. Maybe we're on for another growth spurt. Once people realise he's done 1,000 shows, this soppy old bugger ain't going anywhere. We'd best tune in. Maybe there'll be a bit of that. Speaking of which, the book, the publication to mark the 1000th episode is done. It's written in the past tense. So, I think it actually says on the 15th of September 2025, I broadcast my first ever, my 1000th show. Once that show has happened, you'll get it. You'll get it through the WhatsApp group. Anybody else that isn't on the WhatsApp group, not a problem at all. I will get it to you one way or another. Dan says, if I could have my phone case with my top 5 machines, Hitachi and Hyundai wouldn't make the list. Wow. Would they in mine? I think Hitachi would. But at least partly because, the black and orange would look pretty cool. You'd have to throw Caterpillar in there. You'd have to throw Liebherr in there. And Volvo in there. It's an interesting one. Yeah, there you are. Top 5. If you could have a phone case, what 5 would you have? Or a breakfast showcase? Yeah, Demo Dar says, what's at Kentucky apart from the Colonel? See, I'm of the mind where I might get to Kentucky and mention Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the people from Kentucky, who are known as Kentuckians, by the way, who knew? They might just say, oh, no, we just call it fried chicken here. Maybe. No, I'm going to the Utility Expo. 1,000 exhibitors all crammed into the exhibition centre in Kentucky, including some pretty big names. Caterpillar are there, Link Belt are there, lots of earth moving equipment, lots of attachments and that kind of thing. So we're going to do that, which is good. I'm looking forward to it. Crumbs, no notifications today, and I actually have time. Morning all, says Nigel Williams. Nigel, I don't know what happened to your notifications, but good morning. You're welcome. Any books on A Sight for Sore Eyes? There will be another Sight for Sore Eyes at some point later in the year. I've got loads of content for it this time. I mean, obviously, I'm at the point now where I'm producing these morning monologues, which I'm also turning into articles. I'm doing 5 a week. So you imagine 5 a week for probably 45 weeks or thereabouts. That's a shit ton of content. I'm only gonna bag up the very best of the very best. If you're really interested, you could save yourself the time and you could just go straight over to. I'm sure I have a button for this. I do. Just go over there. Demolition Insider over on Substack. All the articles are there, but I will be doing A Sight for Sore Eyes. And Dan is going for his top 5 if he were having phone cases, optional phone cases or swappable phone cases. Cat, Liebherr, Kobelco, Komatsu, Doosan. See, I missed out Kobelco, and I couldn't. Imagine a phone case in that Kobelco colour. I mean, that's going to look the bee's knees, isn't it? When is the Kentucky Derby? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't have a lot to do with the nags, as it were, but I'll look it up while I'm doing the next bit. I'm sitting here, another machine too, and he's ticking over. Dan, wave him over and get him to come and watch the show. We've got to get more viewers somehow. Anyway, it is time to press on. Yeah, we're doing Liebherr in just a moment after this. Now, you might think that ancient Egypt and electric cranes probably don't have much in common. And I think you'd probably be right. But in the hands of Liebherr's video department, they kind of work well together. Take a look.
Over 4,500 years ago, The builders of this burial chamber created the monument before us. The massive sarcophagus with incredible precision. But what if they had access to the LR 1300.2SX unplugged? This battery-powered crane could have effortlessly moved the heavy blocks, revolutionizing their work. No worries. With modern ground pressure reduction technologies, even this delicate environment remains untouched. Here, in these waters, we witness a true feat of engineering. Building bridges, locked in an endless battle against the raging elements, the new LR 1300 withstands wind and waves. With floating unit operation and vertical line finder, this operation becomes safer and more efficient than ever before. A clear thumbs up for engineering revolution and for a sustainable future!
Good evening, everybody. The wind is picking up and the storm clouds are rolling in fast. The temperature
in the urban jungle of glass and concrete, challenges are often invisible. Gusting winds, sudden rain, hazards that can appear at any moment. Yet the new LR 1300 handles these with impressive composure. Thanks to my notifier, it detects potential risks early. And even in blustery weather, the boom up and down assistant ensures that the boom is safely and precisely lowered, quickly and with the calmness of a pro. A crane that braves wind and weather, always keeping its cool. In one of the quietest environments in the world, where every sound feels like a thunderclap, the new LR 1300 reveals itself in all its glory. So silent that even the most sensitive ears wouldn't notice it. Its operation is almost whisper-like, its precision breathtaking. In this sacred silence, where every noise could be a disturbance, it remains disguised. The new Liebherr LR 1300.2SX Unplugged. An innovation that not only impresses with its silence, but also redefines the standards of precision and sustainability.
Do love a bit of Liebherr creativity. Chris Ford says, when is the Kentucky Derby? I can tell you, it's the first week in May. I'm going in October. I'm going to miss it by quite a bit, but there you are. Nigel Williams says, top 5 for a phone case would be Kobelco in North American colours. I don't understand that. Kobelco European colours, I personally think are much, much better. But he also goes for Cat, Komatsu, Hitachi, Liebherr. The white and the yellow of Liebherr would just pop, wouldn't it just? Yeah, that is a good look, I have to say. Going back to the crane video that we've just shown you, this kind of sums up the modern world, doesn't it? Let's have a look. Jim Turner says, yes, the crane would have made it easier, but all the red tape would have slowed it down even more. True enough. Going back to our question of the day. Question of the day is, what is most important to you right now? Nigel Williams says, progress on my health and fitness journey. Well done, sir. Well done indeed. Now, no, it's okay. I've lost a thing. I don't know where it's gone. Don't worry, Mark. There will be some horses still running. I'm sure there will. It'll pass me by, of course. I wonder how long the batteries last when you pick and carry a load. I don't know, but hey, listen, I'm sure, Andy, with your connections in the crane world, I'm sure you'll be able to find out. Dan Cullen says, watching Chernobyl series on TV now, and wow, I mean, I should watch it. It's crazy how they lied about it. If you haven't seen it, I have to say it's one of the highlights of TV over recent years for me. Absolutely fantastic. Jared Harris, and I can never remember the bloke's name, and sadly he's no longer with us, but the dad from Friday Night Dinner. Absolutely top-notch acting. If you haven't seen it, I would really, really recommend it. Anywho, people, loads to get through, and I've still got my trip to Essex, Malden in Essex coming up. A 1 minute and 10-second word from our latest show sponsor. Yeah, properly playing with the big boys today. We've gone from Liebherr to Cat. Next up is Volvo. Volvo compaction, which is something we don't feature particularly often. Here we go.
In 1956, when my grandfather and grandmother started the company, we really focused on paving driveways, parking lots, and subdivisions. But over the course of the last 69, 70 years, we've become a heavy highway contractor here in St. Louis, Missouri. In this town, anyone that knows our industry knows our name, and we have an outstanding reputation, and I'm proud because it's taken a long time to build that reputation. I think keys to our success over the generations, you have to put in sensible bids, and you have to have the right people to complete the work within that bid. There are a lot of things that can catch you and sink you, but really, first and foremost, it starts with hiring the right people. So I think people underestimate the sacrifices people in our industry make to show up to work when they maybe don't know when they're coming home or if they're going to make dinner with their family. So it's a difficult industry to work in. The contracts that we sign with MoDOT or St. Louis County or other government agencies, there are very specific targets on what we have to do. Thickness laid, density of the mix, smoothness of it. So you need the equipment that can help you meet those metrics. There's never been a question that we won't get our density numbers with Volvo and their compactors. In Missouri, there are projects called ICIR jobs, which stands for Intelligent Compaction and Infrared Monitoring, where all of the rollers on an ICIR job are interconnected, and the IC mapping process on the Volvo rollers is outstanding. The ICIR on them is very easy to operate and pull information off of, and we have a younger generation coming into the workforce. When you're working at night, it can be very difficult to see your rolling pattern. So if you're not experienced and you don't have a camera on there, you may miss a portion of a pass. So having the IC system on these rollers is really helpful in teaching the younger generation and mapping out their rolling pattern. When we hire them, there are people that we know may not have the full capability that day, but we are happy to hire them and train them based off of their values meeting our values.
Using the intelligent compaction makes the job a lot easier because it shows you your passes, it gives you a color grid, how many times you've hit it, how wide you've gone over it, so you know you don't miss any spots and you can get everything to where it needs to be at.
One of the biggest challenges I face to keep our fleet operational is communication. If equipment is having issues, having it brought to my attention, having it brought to my team's attention to be able to repair it. Volvo and CMW have been huge in that with their factory telematics in place to where a lot of times they're aware of an issue before I even know that it exists or before an operator or user has a chance to report it back to me.
The Volvo DD120C has been a good fit for NB West because it allows them a lot of variability in the type of compactive effort that it provides. It's a 78-inch wide drum, which allows them a good overlap. And then when you factor in that they're using intelligent compaction in the process, it's allowed them to maximize the efficiency in the rolling patterns and not over compact. and also allows them the opportunity to put a more inexperienced operator in the seat and not worry about the performance that they're going to get.
Cracking video, cracking machines. We've had a question here. Well, no, let me go back to Dan's mention of the TV series Chernobyl. It's an absolutely brilliant series, says Andy Dalville. Showed how much they covered up to the whole world until they had to let it out, which kind of set the scene for governments thereafter, didn't it? Dan, back with a question on the rotary cutters from Caterpillar. Question out of interest: would these rotaries not be sore on bushes and pins on machines? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I'm fairly sure that people as clever as the fine folks at Caterpillar have probably got that figured out. But I am due to speak to Caterpillar in the not too distant future. I will ask that question. Dan reckons that one of the guys on that video from Volvo sounded Irish. Listen, if they didn't come from Italy, most of the Americans did come from Ireland, didn't they? I mean, not the native Americans, obviously. Nigel Williams says the battery-operated crane is probably one of the best applications for battery technology, to be honest. They're idle for quite a long time, and they could be direct drive electric drum opposed to hydraulic. I really like the concept. Clad in solar panels, self-charging, bosh, he says. That's different. Sitting sideways instead of facing front. Wow, the Queen mastered it. Her Madge, the Queen, doing her side saddle thing. That's very clever on the Volvo rollers, says Andy Dalvell. Getting the right compaction in any sort of construction is extremely important, as everything is tested and checked these days. And not just tested and checked, but you do have a long-term responsibility as well. On many projects, if your paving actually fails at some point in the future, you could have somebody knocking on your door saying, readies, please, people. Now, do I stop for a moment and amuse you, or do I save it for tomorrow? 10:33. I tell you what. So I was idly scanning through YouTube over the weekend, and I stumbled across a video. Now, this would have been from the late 80s, I would guess. Anyone remember, obviously, the TV show, Not the 9 O'Clock News, when Rowan Atkinson and Pamela Anderson went their own way? Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones went their own way, and they started a show called Alas, Smith and Jones, comedy show. And in one episode, they did a skit about how the construction industry really works. Now, as I say, this is best part of 35, possibly even 40 years old. It's about the Channel Tunnel. But watch it, and you tell me, have we really progressed? This is just an amusing aside. Have a look.
Channel Tunnel project. The general idea was, you see, that the French were going to drill from their side, and we were going to tunnel from our side, and then we were going to meet up, sort of in the middle here. Well, yesterday the French announced that they'd completed their section. Twin tunnels drilled, railway tracks laid, and a service shaft down the middle. Bang in position and right on time. As for us, our position to date seems to be, well, about 200 yards from the Ashford bypass.
That's about right, yes.
That's right, yes. So what exactly is holding us up then?
We're waiting for a skip.
A skip?
Well, yeah, and of course the men are in the middle of another job at the moment.
What, the men are working on another job?
Yeah, Mrs. Willoughby, Dollis Hill.
You do realise that this is the single most important engineering project this century?
Don't leave it out. It's a kitchen extension. I mean, there's a bit of electric.
I'm not talking about Mrs. Willoughby's. Right. I'm talking about this.
Right, okay, all right.
I mean, we've paid you and your men, what, I mean, £2.5 billion in cash.
Yeah. Well, see, you don't mind me saying so, Mr. Kane. Therein lies your problem, you see. The blokes have been so busy counting the bloody stuff, you know. So they like to check their wage packets before they knock off for the weekend, you see.
I mean, I should have seen the warning signs when we had the tenders in, shouldn't I? Because, I mean, this is McAlpine's tender here, you see, and then we've got Cementation Construction's tender there, and this is Costain International's tender there, and Yeah, now this is yours, isn't it?
Yeah, that's ours, yeah.
That's right, yes. To build one channel tunnel...
half a channel tunnel.
Oh, sorry, half a channel tunnel. Local tunnels, including RSJ and Dan, of course. £2.5 billion plus VAT. Please leave spare set of keys.
Yeah, well, there's the other thing. See, we never did get those keys.
No, you see, Stubbs, you see, we gave you this project, you see, because you'd given us the impression that you had a major record of construction engineering work throughout the world. I mean, didn't you get the contract for the Aswan Dam?
Yeah, we did, yeah. Yeah, we were all set raring to go. Bloody van broke down, didn't it?
You've never actually built anything at all, have you?
Now, hold on a minute. I mean, we refurbished the entire Taj Mahal.
The Taj Mahal?
Well, it was the Taj Mahal. It's the Laughing Poppadom now, I think. It was Broadway, just past the tube station, and that was a lot of plumbing in the fountains and all the arches with all the plaster work. It was a very big job.
I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I really don't. Look, you don't understand. I must have your men out there drilling now. I must have 2 tunnels, 50 metres wide, 200 metres below sea level, 17 miles in length, well, before Friday at the latest.
17 miles, you say?
Yes.
Well, I've lent out my extension lead, you see, so...
Get out! No, Stubbs!
Yeah?
You couldn't see about my wife's patio sometime over the weekend, could you?
I'll make it a priority.
How far have we come, people? How far have we come? I hope you enjoyed that. Let's have a look. Andy Thornton, hilarious. I was responsible for technical manuals production. Sometimes I worked 36 hours a day because they couldn't get the originals to me for check-in or reproduction. Yeah. Wait, can't build the channel tunnel because we're waiting for a skip. Dan Cullen enjoyed that. Let's have a look. Funny as all balls. Mick Norton says, from sledges and ramps in the sand to Liebherrs that tower and stand, the pharaohs hauled stone with muscle alone. Now steel lift with one joystick hand methods. Yeah, very poetic. Thank you very much indeed for that. Jim Turner says, not just solar panels, a crane gym is a great place for a load of mini wind turbines built into the lattice work. Liebherr, I hope you're paying attention. Right, we're going to go back to the show proper now. In case you're not aware, today is show number 995. 995 times I've said welcome to the Breakfast Show. Just to prove that we don't throw these shows together, this is our show number 995. There is a cat 995, and it looks like this.
What stands out to me with the 995 loader is the features in the cab, and the overall performance of it is impressive to me. They've really gone out of their way to make it more operator friendly with the touchscreen, the VIM screen, the seating, the ergonomics of the controls. I think it's a lot better than the old cab style.
The biggest thing about comfort in the cab I notice is how spacious the cab is. There's a lot more leg room. They moved the HVAC unit from behind the seat to around the side of the cab, which allowed the operator seat to be able to move back further for your taller operators. You have a nice box behind the seat to store your lunchbox so it's not bouncing around the cab. It has an improved operator trainer seat. The overall comfort of the cab is just by far greater than the previous cab. With this new cab, the visibility is much greater. The windshield, instead of cutting off right at the top, right up here above your head, the glass now continues all the way to the top of the cab so you can see at a full view of your bucket while you're loading the trucks. And the side view with the windows down lower on the sides of the machine are a lot better for view outside the sides of the cab.
There's definitely less noise and vibration in the 995. It's very quiet, very comfortable, no vibrations at all.
This is definitely a step above the older machines. It had the front pump drives because you always felt vibration from that pump drive in front of the cab, the drive line running underneath the cab. All that's been eliminated in this. Your pumps are sitting behind the cab, so you don't have those rotational devices traveling underneath the cab to reduce that noise and vibration. The new EH upgraded steering is by far a huge improvement over the Pilot steering. It's super sensitive also, but on the other hand, it's super light. And the difference with this one is, more than anything, wherever that stick steer stays, it stays in conjunction with wherever the machine is angled. Where the old stick steer, you were constantly have to counter steer back. It took a lot more force to steer the machine. So over time, a long 10 hours, 12-hour shift, the operators are going to by far be less fatigued at the end of the shift because it is a lot easier to maneuver. The onboard technologies in this machine, I believe, are going to be a step above. They're going to be extremely helpful for the inexperienced or the new operators coming in, or operators that want to improve. The auto dig features let you focus on where you're going next and not having to be so concerned about whether I'm setting my tires, lifting the tires, whether I'm stalled out in the face, because these auto dig features are doing all those functions for you. Lift stall prevention is a really good feature. A lot of operators struggle when they're in a hard dig. The machine stalls out, you can't lift, you can't go forward anymore, you can't rack. So what the lift stall prevention does is it backs off on your rim pole, allows that machine to disengage from the face briefly, allows you to break out and continue up through the face, continuing with your dig cycle. Tire set is another feature on the machine in the auto dig features. Whenever you enter the pile, you normally would have to enter the pile, pull up on your hoist control just enough to set your tires or put weight on the tires so you don't spin. With the auto tire set feature, the operator no longer has to worry about that.
Tire slip prevention helps an operator like me with not as much experience in that aspect. When you're digging into the muck, it doesn't slip your tires. It backs it off a little bit and keeps you from having to worry about that problem.
Before, we used to have to go and dial down the rim pole setting. Now you really don't have to, because the tire slip prevention is taking care of all these features behind the scenes. And then we also have operator coaching. It monitors up to 23 different parameters. So at any time, if you're doing something incorrectly, that blue star in the corner of your screen is going to turn white. You hit that, it'll bring up your performance summary. It'll show you what that operator is doing, and it'll also play a short video to show you the wrong thing he's doing and let the operator know that he could be doing these functions different and better to make his performance improve. So I think for the new operators coming in, or the inexperienced operator, is going to be a great coaching feature on the machine. So adapting to these changes, don't just form an opinion right up front. Go ahead and give yourself some time, take it slow. All these features working in the background all collaborate together, and they help with machine performance, operator performance, and your fuel efficiency.
Nigel Williams says, I love a loading shuffle with Volvo. L260 is probably the nicest shuffle I've had. 40 tons of Swedish muscle. Sounds like the name of a blue movie. 40 tons of Swedish muscle. Dan Cullen says, wonder, can you get a remote control? I would imagine so. I've actually answered this in the chat because I had the time to do so. But with the CAT command system, I think the CAT command system is pretty much applicable to almost every product in their product line. So yes, I think you probably could go fully automatic on that, remote control rather. Dan also says auto dig makes operators a bit lazier. Maybe, but I think in the grand scheme of things, when you think about the amount of fuel that these machines burn and the cost thereof, plus wear and tear on things like tires, drivetrain, and everything else, the more I'd liken it to like a professional athlete. You're talking about shaving tenths of a second off a sprinter's 100-meter dash. I think we're looking at the same here, and if you can find some bit of technology that will just raise the game just a little bit, mate. I must admit, I mean, I'm a fan of gadgetry and stuff like that. But one of the things that I really appreciated on that was this notion of tips for the driver. Some kind of education, ongoing education. If you did this, you could get that bit more out of it. Dan, not convinced, though, says too many gadgets and sensors on these machines now. Nigel Williams says, no, there's an art to driving a shovel well. They're making these features so you can't turn them off, which is spoiling it for old hands like me. It's an interesting one. And I listen, if I had the backing of a big media production company, which sadly I don't, I'd love to do a side-by-side. We used to do side-by-side comparisons of different types of machines. So, a Cat 3CX against a Cat 428 against a JCB 3CX and so on. Head-to-head competition. I wonder how human would fare against assisted human in a straight head-to-head, be it on an excavator, a wheel loader, a dump truck, a dozer. I hate to say it, guys. I realise I'm probably straying into dangerous territory now. If I were a betting man, which I'm not, I'd be backing the machine. I really would. Dan says that's true too. Looking at it like that, I suppose. When you think about the way that mines and quarries operate, it is down to the finest of fine margins. Here's loss, here's profit, here's more profit. And if you can just get that little bit more out of each machine, that little bit more out of each litre of fuel, you're going to do it. Jim Turner says, the lad had a Liebherr shovel on demo the other week, said all the driver's aids made it slower and less efficient than their equivalent Volvo, and the demo machine was longer too. Okay. Listen, if anybody would like to do a side-by-side comparison, please copyright me in and make it happen. What have we got? We've got one more film, and this is kind of dedicated to Dan Cullen. Back after
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
If you were here at the top of the show, you will know that Dan Cullen is now partnered by a Komatsu dozer. Well, taking care of your dozer's undercarriage, your Komatsu dozer's undercarriage, important process. We have a video about that.
Hi, I'm Jason Kohlross, a service engineer with Komatsu.
I'm Rafal Bukowski, Product Marketing Manager for HST Dozers. And today, we'd like to talk to you about Komatsu's Plus undercarriage systems. Plus stands for Parallel Link Undercarriage System and is designed to optimize machine performance and reduce operating costs.
Today we're going to show you what it takes to perform a thorough daily walk-around of your Plus undercarriage. A complete undercarriage inspection includes the inner and outer portion of all components. The first step is to clear any packed material on the machine so we can get a better look at the track components. It's important to regularly clear out packed material from the tracks to prevent stretching of the links and extra wear and fatigue on the rolling components. Once the tracks are clean, we can start our inspection.
We start by doing a quick walk around of the whole machine, looking for any obvious signs of damage or fluid leakage. Then we can look at the grousers, making a quick comparison of their heights widthwise and down the track, while also looking for any signs of uneven wear and obvious signs of separation between track grousers. Make sure to note any track pad damage or broken bolts that should be addressed.
Now we can move to the rollers and idlers. We want to inspect the surface of all the rollers and verify that the amount of wear is consistent from one roller to the next. We also want to note if the wear marks are centered on the roller or off to the side, as this may indicate an issue with the alignment of the tracks or lots of tracking on slopes. Be sure to pay attention to any indications of fluid leakage, wear or free play at the roller and idler shaft seals. Also inspect the self-adjusting idler spring retainers for any loose or missing fasteners.
Next, we can look at the track links and bushings. The main item to look for is any inconsistencies in the wear of the tracks. Inspect the bottom of the track links for waves or uneven amounts of wear. A track that is adjusted properly should appear straight and smooth. From there, we look at the bushings and determine if any of them are leaking oil around the seals or if any have cracks or damage. A track link that has run out of oil will either have signs of oil leakage around the seal or will have visually begun to stretch the link, slowly pulling the bushing and link apart.
The last major component to look at is the final drive sprockets. Plus sprockets see significantly less wear than conventional tracks due to the rotating bushing. However, they will still wear down over time as dirt finds its way in during travel. Inspect the wear on the edges and root of the sprocket teeth. They should be consistent from one side of the tooth to the other, as well as from one side of the machine to the other. Excessive wear on the sides or tips of the teeth could indicate an issue with the adjustment of the track, or that the machine is spending a lot of time operating on slopes.
The final item to check is the overall tension of both tracks. If the tracks are too loose or too tight, uneven wear can occur and the life of the undercarriage can be reduced over time. Refer to your machine's O&M manual for instructions and proper track adjustment. That completes your daily operator walkaround of your Komatsu Plus undercarriage.
During the inspection, if any abnormalities are found, please contact your local Komatsu dealer, and they can assist you in getting an undercarriage inspection performed by a certified Komatsu Parts and Service Sales Representative, or PSSR.
They will be able to take measurements on your undercarriage and determine what components require maintenance.
So now you know. Nigel Williams says Komatsu D71, probably one of the greatest mid-sized dozers ever built. Hard to argue with that. Got to be honest, purely aesthetic, I prefer the high drive of the Cat, the elevated sprocket design. I think it looks meatier, more powerful, but I have to say, do love me a bit of Komatsu. And Nigel says, I love the track inspection video. Great little clip. Thank you very much indeed. Now, this is a very key point, I think, here. Nigel also says they're spending billions creating technology that would be unnecessary if people took mentorship seriously. A mentor would teach you far more about the whole operation than just a segment of a machine's cycle per load. All very true. How much technology do we have now that has been built to plug a gap that shouldn't be a gap? Seriously. Reversing cameras. We wouldn't need reversing cameras if we could, at long last, put men in one area and machines in another. Collision avoidance. Same thing. Quick couplers, automatic quick couplers. If we could teach operators to get out of the cab, even if it's raining, to put pins in, we wouldn't have needed them, and so on down the line. Lots and lots of unnecessary technology in this industry. Dan Cullen enjoying the Komatsu video as well. Good, glad to hear it. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue, which is a bit of a weird one, but yeah. If it gets too weird, feel free to bail out. I won't take it personally. But if you can stick around, please. If you can't stick around, should I say, look after yourself, your family, your friends, your colleagues. I'll hope to see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back immediately after a smidgen. Now, I promise this is going somewhere, so just give me a minute, would you? On the 13th of July 1985, the 4 members of the band Ultravox played to an estimated global audience of almost 2 billion people as part of the Live Aid concert. It would be another 23 years before they shared a stage together again. The drummer, Warren Cann, went off to make film scores with Hans Zimmer. The synth player, Billy Currie, recorded a series of very arty and orchestral solo albums that were heard by virtually no one. The bass player, Chris Allen, became a psychotherapist. Meanwhile, the singer, Midge Ure, was already one of the founders of Live Aid. Together with Bob Geldof, he'd written the Band Aid song, Do They Know It's Christmas, just 6 months before. A year after Live Aid, Midge Ure released his solo album, The Gift. And the first single from that album, If I Was, reached #1 on the UK charts, a feat that Ultravox never actually accomplished. Now, I share that music history lesson for a reason. It's weird how inspiration strikes. There I was, minding my own business, playing music in the background, when a song came on that instantly transported me back to the mid-1980s, while simultaneously providing me with a useful, very timely metaphor. That song was If I Was by the former Ultravox frontman Midure. It was released almost 40 years ago. I hadn't heard it in decades. Now, those that are old enough might recall the basic premise of the song, in which Midure imagines himself in various roles: a sailor, a painter, a poet, and how each might declare and demonstrate their undying love for an unnamed woman. There's a line in it that reads, "If I was a soldier, captive arms I'd lay before her." I was 21 when that song came out, so when I heard it again, my initial response was one of nostalgia tinged with sadness at my lost youth. But then I was struck that the song would be a perfect backdrop for a look at the demolition and construction industry of today. So stick with me and Midure while we imagine the demolition and construction industry as other things and in different scenarios. And I'm going to start with the issue of recruitment. And to highlight the problem that demolition and construction faces, let's imagine the industry as an actor at a Hollywood casting call. Now, our actor has spent months preparing for this one big shot. He's not one, excuse me, he has not one, not two, but three monologues memorized. He's mastered every faraway look, every emotional crack in his voice, every nuanced movement during hours and hours in front of the mirror. He has selected his next big thing outfit and is ready to show the movie's producers precisely why their movie simply cannot exist without him. He walks into the casting studio, and there, sat opposite him, is Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is so handsome that the actor begins to question his own sexuality. The guy exudes charisma and cool. He's got a CV that's just a long list of successes, blockbusters, and Oscar nominations. And worst of all, the dude can act. This is the demolition and construction industry at a skills or recruitment fair. It may have learned its lines and got its hair just right. It might actually think it's the career of choice. But then in walks Google, Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, the Brad Pitts of the employment world. There's no competition. Demolition and construction is the perennially unemployed actor, destined to wait tables for all eternity. Now, for the next bit, let me borrow even more from Midure. Imagine the industry as a soldier. Day in and day out, year upon year, the industry battles in the trenches. The conditions are terrible beyond imagination. Injuries and death are a constant companion. Thanks to a leadership that is far removed from the dirt and shrapnel, the muck and the bullets, the industry is constantly vulnerable, constantly exposed. It's outgunned and outmaneuvered, continually fighting a losing battle with outmoded equipment and outdated ideas. The industry remains resilient, even under friendly fire from those within its own ranks. Some of its number have been killed, injured, or maimed. Some have gone AWOL. Some have simply lost the will to keep fighting a war in which there is too much pain for too little gain. Yet that soldier will fight until he's the last man standing, and even then he won't surrender. But in his heart of hearts, he knows he's fighting a battle that cannot be won and that the war is lost. His only hope is that someone will take inspiration from his sacrifice. Now, given that this entire story was inspired by a song, let's imagine the demolition and construction industry as a band. It's a band that has been around forever, but it's not the Stones and it's not the Who. It never really achieved legend status. The band had some big hits back in the 70s and 80s, but they failed to move with the times and they fell out of fashion. All of the original members have long since quit or fallen into the sex and drugs and rock and roll trap and died. They now survive on past glories. The only connection to the golden age is the drummer, who is the nephew of the band's original bass player back in its heyday. While Jagger and Richards, Townsend and Daltrey are still playing to packed stadiums on lucrative world tours, this band is now playing to 100 or so nostalgia buffs and die-hard fans at a Butlin Soul Weekender. My final metaphor is one that I've used previously in past articles and monologues, and it's that of the boxer. A boxer that has taken one punch too many, that survives each new bout on bravery, instinct, and muscle memory alone. Each new blow moves the boxer closer and closer to retirement. In truth, a benevolent coach or manager would have thrown in the white towel of surrender by now, but they haven't. So the boxer keeps slugging away, hoping and praying for one more Hail Mary punch, one final haymaker to wind back the clock and remind the world of what it once was. But those days are gone. That was the past. The future is now one of posing for photographs, fists up with people. Some of those people might recall the glory years, the victories, the championships. Others will just see a bum that took too much punishment and is now just a shambling and embarrassing reminder of what he used to be. So as our demolition and construction industry stands centre stage in these borrowed guises, the hopeful actor, the embattled soldier, the faded rock band, the weary boxer, what actually remains? Maybe there will be no grand declarations, no roaring climax. Maybe there'll just be a sober look at what is and what was. And maybe the best we can hope for now is the title of another mid-year song. No regrets. There you are. As I said, inspiration strikes me in the strangest places and for the strangest reasons, but there you are. Nigel Williams says, high drives cats are clattery, noisy things. Aesthetically, they look very smart, but in the cab, they make ear protection a necessity on a long shift. Is that right? I've never spent enough time in them to worry about. I've driven a few, never thought, and Andy Thornton, well played, sir. This means nothing to me, R. Vienna. Yes, very, very good. Yeah. I was, as you can probably imagine, I was and remain a huge Ultravox fan. I've been to see them dozens of times. Saw them back in the 80s and then saw them again when they came back. I've told you the story about reliving my youth. But yeah, there you are, Ultravox. And most of that I wrote completely from memory, purely because that's how much I love them. I've got I'm doing a monologue tomorrow, just to give you a very quick heads up. May live to regret it, but it's going to be on the subject of immigration. Not the wider argument about how awful Johnny Foreigner is or how welcome they are in our country or all points in between. I'm looking at immigration purely as it applies to this industry, because there is a government white paper that is going to place further restrictions on immigration, which I'm sure many people, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm sure many people will look at that and say, about bloody time, small boats and all that good stuff. Okay, yep, that's absolutely fine. But we're talking about restrictions here on legal immigration and the potential impact upon industries like demolition and construction, which certainly in our urban conurbations are deeply, deeply reliant upon migrant labour. We've been down this road before. Post-Brexit, immediately post-Brexit, we had a lot of our workers from Poland and Bulgaria and Romania say, you've done this purely for immigration reasons. You don't like us that much. Well, screw you, we're going home again. And the industry was, where's half of our workforce gone? Well, having shot ourselves in the foot once, Keir Starmer and his pals have decided to reload the shotgun and shoot themselves in the foot yet again. Listen, at the point where Angela Rayner obviously went on, was it Friday last week? I mean, I think the government's pretty much in disarray as it is, and thanks to their disarray, I think the industry could find itself in disarray in the not too distant future. Keep an eye out for that. As I say, and we're talking about that tomorrow. And listen, you can bring your views. I will air them. We're a broad church here, and I realise there are many views on the whole immigration issue. We've obviously had marches in London this weekend. We've got flags, Union Jack and St George's flags flying up and down the country. We want our nation back and all of that kind of thing, which, as I say, people are entitled to their opinion. I don't necessarily agree with that opinion, but they're entitled to that opinion. But what happens if we do start to put greater restrictions on immigrants? It's going to be an issue. What about the cement shortages in the industry? I'm not entirely convinced there are shortages. But what we have done is we've shifted the balance. We used to produce most of our own cement. We now import most of our cement, much the same as we do with steel and other building materials. The typical British approach. I mean, it goes back to that Alas Smith and Jones video. A typically short-term view. We can draw our building materials from overseas. We can draw our energy from overseas, despite the fact that we've got the North Sea at our disposal. And as soon as you do that, you are basically open to being held hostage by foreign powers. A lot of our cement comes from France. If the French decided to get uppity, which, let's be honest, the French do quite regularly, if they decide to get a bit uppity and wave two baguettes in our general direction, where we're going to get our cement from? You can't restart a British cement plant overnight. Jim says, my flagpole went up yesterday. Union flag flying high, sticking 2 fingers. I'm not sure where that goes after that. Upbringing the not sure. We've had a weird there we are. Sticking 2 fingers up to that share of shite in Westminster. It's hard not to, really, isn't it? We've had a really strange turn of events here in. Now bear in mind, I'm in leafy Surrey. We're not talking about Tower Hamlets. We're a fairly peaceable bunch here. Overnight, about a week ago, we had a bunch of flags go up, lashed to our lampposts. And when I live by a place called Stoneleigh Broadway. If you look up and down Stoneleigh Broadway, there's Turkish barbers, and there's a Polish clothing shop, and there's a Chinese restaurant and an Indian restaurant, and there's a Portuguese cafe, and so on. It really is a pretty heady mix of nations and nationalities. We had a bunch of flags go up. A lot of people, including those that owned, foreign-owned shops, but also a lot of the locals were up in arms about it. Somebody overnight then came along and cut the flags down. A lot of the local residents were up in arms about that. It's a really strange time. So I'm gonna throw my hat into the ring and talk about immigration. But as I say, you can bring your views, you can air your views. I'm not going to argue with you. Everybody's opinion is at least as valid as mine, some more so. But where I'm concerned is demolition and construction. And think about it purely from, and I will do this tomorrow, but think about it purely from an employment standpoint. We lost a bunch of workers due to Brexit. Didn't really recover, so we already had a skill shortage that's been made worse. We do not have enough young people and apprentices coming into the industry. We've got an aging workforce. We shifted the goalposts on the CSCS card, took away grandfather rights, so we lost another bunch of workers there. And now we're going to tighten restrictions on immigration, legal immigration. So we're going to reduce. We are basically tightening. Imagine the flow of workers into the heart, like an artery feeding the heart. One way or another, we are filling that artery with unnecessary cholesterol. And one of these days, the industry is going to clutch its chest and keel over. Metaphors on the go. We have a self-imposed skill shortage. We do. And not only is it self-imposed, but we've also done fuck all about it. We've created a problem, and one step after another, we've made it worse. We've exacerbated it with rules and regulations and shifts and what have you. And now I'm going to make it even worse. Clever, right? And again, you've got a government that has basically pinned its hopes of survival on the notion of building this 1.5 million new homes. Ill-advised, was never going to happen, but now they're about to make it even less likely to happen. Brilliant, isn't Andy Thornton says, happy to fly the flag out of patronisation, not weaponisation. Yeah, I find myself so weirdly torn with this flag thing. I mean, I grew up in the 70s when the National Front were all about the place, and you know, the Union flag kind of got itself co-opted. It did become a symbol of racism, and I do believe it's become that again. We have we have allowed that to happen. You know, I mean, when England play in the World Cup, I've got an England shirt that I wear with pride. I wouldn't wear it any other time because I don't wear football shirts. But you know, I'd wear an England shirt. But because we've allowed that symbol to be co-opted, flying a flag now is actually seen as weaponization. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You know, the flag does still belong to the nation. Black, brown, white, green, yellow doesn't. You know, it still belongs to the nation, but we have allowed it to be co-opted in that way. I'm going to be talking about immigration tomorrow. It's going to be a fucking minefield. Yeah. If you are around tomorrow, please tune in. I look forward to having your company and to getting your views as well. I'm off in a moment. Going to get my shoes on and drive down to Malden in Essex to see Steve Kerslake. And I'm going on this Construction Sport podcast, and we're going to be talking primarily about mental health and suicide prevention and the like. Obviously, a pet subject. But there is kind of an extension to this migration argument situation that also impacts there as well, when you think about it. If we are to maintain our current workloads, and if we don't have migrant labour to fall back on, if we can't attract enough young people, if we can't retain the people that are already here because they're retirement age and everything else, that work will still need to be done. So who gets to do it? The truth is, the people that will get to do it are the people that are already doing it. So one of my many concerns with this is you are currently working, you're doing the work of one person, you're working as hard as you possibly can, but you'll end up picking up part of somebody else's job, possibly two. So you're already working too hard. You could end up working even harder because of this skill shortage and migration and everything else. What will that do to your stress levels? And what will your stress levels then do to your mental health? And is anybody actually thinking that through? And Andy Thornton says, absolutely right. It's a formula for disaster. Yes, formula for disaster. Thanks, government. And it's not just this one. I mean, this one, in the grand scheme of governments, they're not great, but they're not alone. You know, I mean, let's be absolutely honest. I mean, I lived through Boris Johnson and didn't think it could get any worse. Who knew? Who knew? Anyway, people, that will do us for today. Go and have a fine and splendid day. If you find yourself humming If I Was by Midge-Ure, you can thank me later. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic day. All the best.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.